What's going on, boys? Tricks Ridiculous back again with another video. Today I want to do a bit more of a guide to talk about what I think are some of each character's strengths and weaknesses based on what I observed playing each character extensively during the beta and what I anticipate coming in the main game. I hope that this can help some people who either didn't play the beta or who did play but are still just a little unsure which character will suit their play style. I hope this breakdown will give you something to think about when deciding who you'll be playing primarily, and gets you even more excited for the game if that's even possible. Before we get started, I understand many players probably already have in mind who they're going to be focusing on based on their love for the character, myself included, and I'll reveal who that is in the end. But this video is not intended to dissuade you from playing any particular character or to convince anyone that there is a best character. In fact, I think it's important to get good with multiple characters. So one last disclaimer, of course, most of these characters we have not seen their full skill trees, so I'm sure more detail will come about these characters' abilities that will change my thoughts on them when the game fully releases. However, I am trying to keep my assessment at this time as much about each character's general playstyle without diving deep into specific customizations or builds, as I don't think that will really be appropriate as we've only gotten to level 15 with each character. But I will do more deep dive build guides when the game does come out. So be sure to like the video and subscribe for more Avengers content, but without further ado, let's get into it. So I want to start first with none other than Ms. Marvel. So starting off with Ms. Marvel, you've got a heavy-hitting, ground-based brawler who can devastate groups of enemies at once and cause chaos on the battlefield, all while keeping herself alive. Her ability to polymorph at will, increase damage, and heal herself while opening up attacks, like everyone's favorite Whirlwind, make her one of the best Avengers to get right in the middle of the fight and unleash hell. Almost all of her moves end up hitting more than one enemy, even if it's by accident. Couple this with a number of abilities to trip, slam, or even push enemies around, and you'll be causing absolute chaos all over while enemies ragdoll all over the place. Her ultimate also seems to me to be the most powerful of all of the roaming supers for melee brawling, just edging out the Hulkbuster, although the Hulkbuster is a little more versatile, which we'll get into in a minute. Ms. Marvel's limitations do include her being one of, if not the worst character against aerial targets, and her below average movement. Her vertical movement functions similar to Black Widow, but she doesn't really have any way to get around the map faster like Widow does. While her range skill can kill most drones and turrets pretty easily, it really does fall flat when those targets are a little further away than just short to mid-range. And for flyers such as the air spinners, I found it most effective to actually hold down her ranged attacks, so you actually grab them and slam them down to ground level one at the time, so they're a little easier for the team to deal with. But ultimately, if you're playing Ms. Marvel, you're going to have an absolute force on the ground in the fight, capable of keeping herself alive and dishing tons of widespread damage. Just be sure to bring a friend who can help out with everything in the air. Moving on, we're going to go on to Hulk here. Now, Hulk and Ms. Marvel felt extremely similar to me, both kind of filling that team role as a ground-based wrecking ball. Hulk has fantastic area damage with many of his attacks hitting multiple enemies. His rage ability is a powerful tool that can heal on command, break shields, and really crank up the damage when he needs it. He has the ability to grab up to 2 enemies and brandish them as meat mallets, while characters like Kamala and Thor also have the ability to remove enemies from combat. Hulk is the only one who actually gains a benefit from doing so. Hulk does have many downsides, however, with slow attacks that are easily interrupted, causing him to also drop enemies that he's holding, as well as what I believe to be the absolute worst ranged combat among all characters. Hulk is one of the 2 characters that do not have a roaming ultimate, Thor being the other one. I'm not holding his ultimate against him too harshly, as it is an extremely powerful burst of damage, but I don't think it's as impactful to most fights as many other ultimates. Overall, similarly to Kamala, Hulk is another ground-pounding machine with a little less emphasis on pure damage and more just about causing absolute chaos and really throwing enemies all over the battle. Moving on next, we're going to go to Black Widow. Now, everyone knows Black Widow is the combo queen. She's lightning fast and can juggle most enemies seemingly endlessly. And once finished, she can zipline right over to the next unfortunate soul and do the same to him, making her an absolute delight to play. Now, Widow has a very balanced melee and ranged game. Her melee attacks are not very strong, nor do they offer much for area of effect, but they are fast and furious for her to be able to get in and out of fights, while her ranged attack gives her a very serviceable offense against aerial targets. Widow's biggest downsides are really, one, how fragile she is, and two, her difficulty breaking shields or hitting multiple enemies at once. In harder missions, fighting multiple shielded enemies at once, it can really be tough for her to make a difference with just her melee combat. However, to me, the beauty of Black Widow is her ability to stay very viable regardless of the situation. She has no problem gracefully dancing around the battlefield from one enemy to the other, but she can be equally effective supporting with her ranged attacks from a distance, or just helping the team take out a sky full of drones. So overall, Black Widow is an extremely fun and versatile character that can fit into any lineup, either playing solo or with a team. Next, we've got Iron Man, Tony Stark. Iron Man is another extremely versatile character. It's really easy to go on and on about Iron Man because of all of his customizations, and there's really just so many ways he can control the battlefield, so I'll try to keep it brief. His ability to swap between repulsors, lasers, and rockets at will give him many different tools to either combo, deal area of effect damage, break shields, or just deal pure DPS to a single target. For his movement, Iron Man obviously has the ability to fly, which at launch is limited to just himself and Thor. This ability to fly makes Iron Man, combined with this strong arsenal of ranged weapons, hands down to me the best at dealing with pesky turrets and other flying enemies. Combat advantages aside, the ability to fly is honestly just a really convenient ability, especially in some of the more wide open maps. Playing as Iron Man or other flying characters is simply less tedious than playing as other vertically challenged characters. For downsides, Iron Man deeply relies on his intrinsic energy bar. As long as you're not overly abusing his ranged or power attacks, you shouldn't have too much of a problem, but if you want to play him optimally, you really need to micromanage this meter, which can be cumbersome, especially to those who may just want a simpler playstyle. Iron Man also has one of the better ultimates in the game. The Hulkbuster is not as strong as Kamala's Embiggen in pure melee combat, but it does also have ranged attacks for more balance while still making a major difference in just about any fight. You can also deploy it for other team members to use instead if you just hold down your ultimate buttons. So be sure to learn Hulkbuster's moves even if you don't play too much Iron Man, just in case someone throws it down for you. Overall, Iron Man is another well-balanced character who does many things very well. If you're playing Iron Man, I strongly recommend that you prioritize targets in the air. Your team will thank you for it. Moving on, I'm going to go to Thor. Now, for Thor and Captain America, I have not personally played as either one of them via the glitch on PC, but I have watched an extreme amount of gameplay for both, as well as thoroughly analyzed their full skill trees. So my comments on Thor and Cap may be a little bit more speculative and address a little more of what we've seen as a whole. So Thor is a very interesting character because he appears to be an absolute beast who does a ton of damage with every attack, yet looking at his skill tree, he really looks like a total support character. His melee attacks are weighty and powerful, while his ranged attack is a little more disruptive than it is purely damaging. Being a flyer, he's already got an advantage against other flying enemies and turrets. His Mjolnir throw is equal parts fucking awesome and also effective at removing small to medium enemies from combat. This can be useful to be more of a supportive teammate and help your team from getting overwhelmed on the ground, but it isn't a very powerful choice against larger targets. Also, his ultimate, from what I could tell, did almost no damage. Maybe we'll have to reassess when the full game releases, but to me, a small AoE single-use attack needs to either be extremely high damage or be on cooldown extremely quickly. So more to come on the Bifrost when the full game releases, but for right now, I'm going to call it the worst ultimate in the game. Overall, Thor seems to be the most unique character as far as fitting into a role on the team. He seems like he can excel as a hybrid for both supporting the team and dealing pure damage. And lastly, we've got Captain America. Now, Cap has a well-balanced, though not incredible, combat ability from both his melee and range perspective. While he is severely lacking in some areas, he has some characteristics that are completely unique from any other character at this time. Cap's melee attacks are fast and fluid, and while he won't be dishing out frame rate dropping damage, he is more than capable of holding his own against any enemy. His shield throws flow seamlessly with the rest of his melee kit and do respectable damage, and is very strong tracking on enemies as well, so you're definitely going to get a lot of forgiveness on your throws. His charge shield throw as well as his shield throw heroic ability can both hit a large number of enemies at once, and while it won't be dishing out major damage, it can be very useful for clearing minor enemies or even pesky flyers out of the sky. He also has the only known debuff in the game at this time with his support heroic, Rally Cry, causing all enemies he deals damage to take more damage from all sources for a period of time. His ultimate, the Brooklyn Brawler, is also unique in that it is both a burst of damage to surrounding enemies upon activation, but also puts him in a final form, so to speak, for about 23 seconds, during which his melee attacks get much more powerful, and he even has a bit of range to his attacks. I would put this ultimate just a little bit higher than Black Widow's, but probably still not as good as Iron Man or Kamala Khan. It's also worth noting that we know through Cap's upgrades he will have the ability to reflect projectiles back at enemies. We will have to see how effective this is in game. It is definitely a very unique ability that I can see being very valuable to the team, assuming it's easy to use. His biggest downside has to be his movement, which seems to be the worst in the game. And while he is agile around the battlefield, he only has a double jump and a short wall run for his traversal kit. This can make playing him in more open maps very frustrating, as well as downright impossible for him to reach certain chests. Overall, Cap is definitely for players who want to play in a more support/tank role. We know from his skill tree that he will be able to taunt enemies, which is something that we currently only know that he and Hulk can do. And while Hulk fits more of that berserker play style, I feel like Cap is definitely more of that true defensive style tank. So if you play Cap, you will have a balanced offensive arsenal while providing the team with valuable support. As a side note, Cap is going to be my primary hero of choice, but of course I do plan on getting good with every character. So there you have it. In conclusion, if you learned anything, I hope that this shows that every character is viable, but maybe now you might just have a little bit of insight on how to best position yourself in a team composition when playing each character. And remember that no matter which character you choose, you're going to be kicking some serious robot ass. Now, if you made it this far, be sure to let me know down in the comments who you'll be playing primarily. If you learned something, be sure to like the video. If you think I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, then go ahead and move to Australia and dislike the video, and let me know what you think each character will work best in when the game launches. That's all for me. Be sure to subscribe for more Avengers content, and check me out on Twitch as well. Link in the description. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.